Yeah, so good morning. I'm looking at negligence. I'm looking at negligence today, and then we are going to look at elements of a negligence, contributory negligence, last chance, comparative negligence, assumption of the risk. And so defense, I'm I'm already on the slide number 3. This defense, the defense of a party to a claim of another party, setting forth reasons the claim should be denied. We will study the 4 major defenses to negligence. And these defenses are contributory negligence, large chance negligence, comparative negligence, assumption of the risk. And so contributory negligence, what is contributory negligence? This usually occurs in the automobile accidents. And that's just an example, could occur in other negligence. The failure of plaintiffs to take reasonable precautions for their safety, helping to cause their own injury or other loss. And so I already mentioned when the plaintiff fails to take reasonable precautions for their safety, helping to cause their own injury or other loss. That is when contributory negligence comes in. When the plaintiff is very much aware that there is danger or risk, and the plaintiff fails to take reasonable precautions to prevent a harm or to prevent an injury, then the plaintiff is held up as what contributory negligence. And the person who is very negligent instead of taking care of their safety. The next one is last chance defense. Plaintiffs who have been contributory negligent in placing themselves in peril can still recover if a negligent defendant had a last opportunity, clear chance to avoid the accident and failed to exercise reasonable care to do so. The last chance is that if you are driving, for example, and the defendant is a last chance to see that there's going to be an accident if you make a turn, and he fails to stop and makes a right turn or a left turn, hitting the plaintiff, even though the plaintiff was actually a little bit negligent. And so the last person to have observed that there's going to be an accident is the defendant, and the defendant had an opportunity to prevent it and he failed to prevent it. It's called the last chance defense. In that case, the plaintiff has the right and to claim damages, to claim remedies from the accident. It's called last chance defense. The next one is comparative negligence. Before I even come to comparative negligence, if you look at contributory negligence, in the case of contributory negligence, you take it all or you lose it all. With contributory negligence, if you sue the defendant, you have to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that the defendant was at fault. So it's going to be 100%. So if you're able to prove that, the court will award you the damages or liabilities. On the other hand, with contributory negligence, that's why it's called take all or leave or lose all. On the other hand, if you're able to prove beyond any reasonable doubt in court that the defendant was actually the one who was responsible or liable for the accident, and then you lose everything. So I already talked about the last chance. So we're now looking at comparative negligence. A comparative of the negligence of the defendant and plaintiff causing the plaintiff injury. Okay, so there's a comparative here. Other loss in order to reduce the plaintiff damages in proportion to the plaintiff's negligence in causing his or her own injury. In other words, if there is an accident and the plaintiff was about 25% wrong and the defendant was about 75% wrong, the court would decide, would delete. If the damages is, let's say, $1,000, so there's going to be a 25 deduction of the $1,000, which might be $250 deduction. So the plaintiff is likely to take home $750, called comparative negligence. That is the defense. You have defended, you have overcome a little bit of it, you have taken away $250 from your the damages or liabilities. So you pay $750, called comparative. Another way we look at it is assumption of risk. Assumption of risk. The knowing and voluntary acceptance of the danger or risk of what being harmed by someone's negligence. In other words, if there is an accident or if there is a fire or if there is a problem and you are fully aware that there is an issue, the defender has caused a very severe problem, and then you still risk your own life by entering into the zone of danger. It's called assumption of the risk. Okay, so called assumption of risk. So express assumption of the risk, limited assumption of the risk, primary assumption of the risk, and secondary assumption of the risk. For instance, you went to work and when you were returning, your whole house was set ablaze. Everything is being burned down, maybe by a neighbor's negligence. And so instead of staying back in your car and driving away for a little distance and calling the police, you want to go into your apartment or your building to pick up maybe your wallet or your money, and then you get bent, maybe you lose your limbs and your faces. That means you have assumed the risk. You saw that there was fire, there was inferno, and you still rush into the system to rescue maybe your dog or your cat. It's called assumption of the risk. And so you saw that the accident was there, so you still went in. Another assumption of the risk, express assumption of the risk, the knowing and voluntary acceptance of a danger or risk by express agreement. By express agreement. So you are aware and you know and you voluntarily accept the danger and risk of express agreement. We agree to do this, and you know the risk that is involved. Maybe you climb up a hill and then you want to slope down, you want to hike down in a high speed so that you could have money. You know that by doing so, you're going to sustain injuries. You probably break your neck, your rib, or any part of your limb, your legs. So you know it, that is risk, and yet you have accepted it. So this is called express assumption of the risk. Assumption of risk. So exculpatory clause. A clause is an agreement that relieves a party from liability for injury or damages he or she may wrongfully cause. So, exculpatory clause. They are everywhere. When you do contract writing, you have exculpatory clause. You can sue, I can sue you, but you cannot sue me. They are all clauses. And then when you take such a clause, you sign such a clause, and that means you know there is a risk. That's why the person has done it, especially in contract law or employment law. Okay, so you are very aware that there's going to be an exculpatory clause. The next one is adhesive contract, a standardized contract for goods or services offered on a take it or leave it basis without any realistic opportunity for bargaining over the terms of the agreement. So you are selling your car 10,000 US dollars. And that's the price. If you want it, you take it and pay the cash. If you don't want it, you leave it. There's no any opportunity to bargain for a called adhesion contract. The next one is assumption of the risk. I already said here it is implied assumption of the risk. The risk is not expressed but implied. The knowing and voluntary acceptance of a danger or risk through conduct that signifies acceptance in the absence of the express agreement. So this one is implied. I already mentioned going to a cliff to roll down. You have accepted the agreement. And so this is called imply of the risk. Another one is the assumption of risk, a primary assumption of the risk. The plaintiff's knowing and voluntary acceptance of a particular risk that the defendant did not have a duty to prove the plaintiff against. So I just don't have any duty to prove the plaintiff against the called primary assumption of the risk. And so assumption of the risk, secondary assumption of the risk, the plaintiff's knowing and voluntary acceptance of a particular risk, and that the defendant had a duty to protect the plaintiff against. So here, the defendant is in a very good position because the plaintiff knew and should have known and had a voluntary acceptance of a particular risk that the defendant had a duty to protect the plaintiff against. And so that